Well, good morning. I'm Jeff Coleman.
And I'm Deborah Pinkerton. Welcome to Morning Light.
Well, in just a minute, our Morning Light panel will discuss what's behind the culture of academic pressure and why we so often prioritize this over spiritual depth here and around the world. Kind of a perfect way to end the school year.
That is right. But first, here is a preview of what's coming up later in the show. When our children are young, it's easy to read the Bible to them and take them to church and let it sort of all sink in. But what really happens when they become adults and they start to question their faith? Well, our Christian counselor has some advice. Also, Christian singer-songwriter Matt Hammitt talks one-on-one with Morning Light to discuss his book, An Unfiltered Story of His Life.
Pretty transparent and open.
Yeah, very open.
Well, imagine a single 8-hour test determines the rest of your life, your college, your income, even the ability to afford marriage or children. Just about everything rides on the results of South Korea's mega college exam, the Suyong. Students prepare for 12 years under extraordinary personal and family pressure, and on the day of the test, Korea pauses, stores, the stock market, airports, banks open late, even traffic grinds to a halt to create the ideal environment for student success. Does that sound like pressure, Deborah?
Oh my goodness. And I thought SATs were bad.
Yeah, we would have done well in Korea. Yeah.
I don't know about that. Well, the Suyong, or the College Scholastic Ability Test, builds discipline and focus and delivers strong outcomes. There is a price. One of the highest suicide rates among the world's advanced countries. Under pressure, Korea eliminated so-called killer questions from the test. These are questions that often require the help of high-priced tutors to prepare. Now, on test day, Christian churches and Buddhist temples host marathon prayer services to ask God to aid their child's success and ultimately earn a ticket to an elite university. Oh,
and it's
tough.
Deborah, it's a ticket that everybody doesn't get. I mean, so there are winners and losers by design in this process.
So much pressure.
And they're not, Korea's not alone. We're not just picking on Korea today. Here in America, parents able to afford it choose from a menu of schools, from rigorous college prep style schools to home and independent school environments to public schools. The results are uneven, but the pressure to achieve, especially in homes with graduate and post-secondary degrees, is pretty intense. And the accompanying depression, addiction, and often suicide connected to that achievement is very real. Is there a way to reset expectations to produce students who love learning, who are eager to serve, but without sacrificing physical, mental, and even spiritual well-being? We'll take these big questions to the Morning Light panel this morning. And friends, it's a Thursday, so we can give you one last heavy topic for the week. You all have been so very good in giving insight on some other challenging topics. There's a saying that I've heard many Christians use over the years, which, if it's Christian, it's got to be better. And there is a culture in Christian education in particular that says that our not just spiritual character and spiritual formation, but the academics itself should be as rigorous and as hard as the most elite, say, college prep school. Now, Korea has kind of set a standard of its own, of all the advanced countries. When you hear this, Jeremy, the Korean experience, and then you put the suicide rate next to it, some might say there's no connection, that those were just, it was the weak, maybe getting filtered out of a very rigorous system. How do you view it all as a believer, but then as a parent, too?
I think that with good things, when they become the ultimate things, can cause problems no matter what circumstance we're talking about. So it's great to do well in school. It's great to have a wonderful prayer life. But all of those things taken to the extreme, you can be pharisaical, or you can push people to the breaking point. And so we need to remember that because these are good quality things, getting a good education, doing well in sports, taking violin lessons, these are good. But if they're made ultimate, then ultimately they're going to cause more problems. We need to be putting God first and glorifying Him at the forefront.
I see you nodding over here. You've worked with kids in the public school setting, in the private school setting, in the classical Christian school setting, Catholic schools, the whole array, homeschool. Is it the parents, or is it the child? Who drives the pressure? And is some pressure, as I hear some parents saying, hey, some pressure is good pressure.
Sure.
What's the right amount of pressure?
Sure. I mean, we should always feel an obligation. I mean, to Jeremy's point, like we're supposed to be doing our best when we're doing things for God, right? Like we're supposed to be giving him our first fruits and doing the best that we can. So there should be a natural pressure to do our best to give God what he deserves, what he's earned in those things. So there should be a modicum of pressure that's there in every circumstance, that desire to please our Creator who's given us so much. But when we make it too much, when we take it, like you said, something that's good and make it ultimate,
How do you know
we've crossed the line.
How do you know when you've crossed the line? Is it when your child, when the doctor says your child needs to be on ADD medicine so you can keep up?
Right.
Is it when they get a diagnosis that they're clinically depressed? It's when you have to hire a whole legion of tutors? When is it?
Yeah, I mean, if I had an easy answer for that, I'd be rich, right? But at the end of the day, when we're looking at stuff with God, like it's subtle tweaks that make all the difference, right? We start to desire the gifts that God gives us more than we desire God. We start to desire the results more than the one who is the author of those things. And so when that switch happens, when we cross that line, then we've made it too much, right? When we stop desiring God and the presence of the Lord first, and that becomes secondary to these other things, then we've inverted things.
How have you and your family, Michelle, sorted through these decisions? At every juncture of life, it seems that there's a different attitude within the Christian community, Catholic community, about what is the right path for children. So there's all kinds of debates: public school, private school, homeschool. This is the ideal. How did you sort through those decisions and be able to listen to God and tune out sometimes other voices?
Well, to be honest, I think sometimes it's hard as a parent. I think that even as a Christian, there's still pressure. It comes from all arenas, from the time when your kids are in preschool, it starts, to be honest with you. Or even as a baby, because people come with their advice, and there's pressure that the whole society, everybody's putting their kids in this and everybody's doing that. And I remember for us on a limited budget when we had 3 little kids, just praying and asking God, like, you created my kids. You know what you put in them. You know that you're the one who has a path for them. So help us to not go crazy here and run ourselves ragged, but help me and my husband to recognize where their gifting is that you've given them, where you want us to invest in that.
I mean, you identified something, which is that there's almost as much pressure on the parent with other parents to get it right.
Yeah, and I think I've seen that in leading mommy and me groups and all kinds of things, just informally. And those have been a mixture between Christians and non-Christians coming together. And what I found is everybody tries to keep up a face. Like, oh yeah, my kid sleeps through the night, and my kid does this, and my kid's got A student. But then when somebody's real enough to say, you know what, I really blew it today. I yelled at my kids, and I feel horrible. It gives people the freedom to be real. So I think a lot of times there's pressure for everybody to add up to something. But it really rests in who are we and what are we doing, and are we trusting God in the midst of this and being real with ourselves, because God already sees this.
Right. So some people, Jeremy, will say, I hear you all, but kind of losers here, because what we're doing in our family is preparing our kids for Harvard, Yale, Dartmouth, Brown, Columbia, Stanford. We want them to get that ticket and then make the money and then be able to use it for God. But is there something on that pursuit that potentially could get lost? Or is that a legitimate way to approach education? We want our kids to be the best, so we want to buy them the best and get them the best.
I think that there's no guarantee that any student or any of our children are going to do any particular thing in life, but there is one guarantee, is that they're going to stand before God one day. And so our first priority as parents should be to prepare them for that. So I like to say, if I knew my child was going to be sent to Vietnam, for somehow I had foreknowledge, I would be preparing him very different than I do today. But I know that they're going to be facing God one day. I know that they're going to go out and have that world who's has so many problems that they're going to be facing. So if I'm working on those things first, each one of my kids are so different. If we approach them as individuals created in God's image, but individuals with so many different skills and talents, there may be ones that are amazing at academics, and they are going to excel in that, and we should feed those gifts. And there's others who may not be. But we need to be open as parents to God's leading, to say, each year, what's going to be best for my child? Where's God leading my child?
So almost year to year, not pushing them in a system and saying that system is going to produce an outcome.
That's right. That's right.
So there's parents who are watching today, and grandparents who are hearing this conversation saying, you're so stressed out. You don't realize the amount of money we have spent to try to keep up, to try to get our child it to scholarship level. Our whole summers are all tied up with camps and tutors to get our kids ahead. How do you speak to them and give them a little hope so that this conversation just doesn't leave them stressed and saying, boy, at least we're not South Korea, you know?
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I understand that struggle. It's very real, and it can be overwhelming. And I think it's a theme we've heard all week as we've been talking this week, right? It's all about looking to God and looking to God first, and recognizing that if you're going to try to navigate this on your own, if you're going to try to make a change from what your family patterns have been to this point, you're trying to do that on your own, you're not going to have the strength and the ability to do it. We're going to fail miserably, right? Scripture says, seek God's kingdom first and his righteousness, and then these things will be added, right? It's all about seeking God first. And if you back up just a few verses in Matthew, Jesus is talking, and he talks about we can't serve two gods. We can't serve God and money in this case.
Let me hit pause there, because there's some saying, but yes, if they spend their life getting the academic credentials and the money, by the time they're 40 or 50, they'll be able to write a big check to the church, be able to support the work, maybe even fund a church baseball team, or pay for missions.
Yeah.
So is the journey just as important as the destination? Or how are you saying that? How are you?
Yeah, so if we follow Jesus' thought as he keeps going through the Sermon on the Mount there, he finishes with a bunch of people at the end of the days, right? Like Jeremy's talking about when we stand before God, and they're going to say, hey, didn't I do all these things in your name? Didn't I prophesy in your name? Didn't I give all that money to the trips? Didn't I do all these things? And Jesus' response to them is, I never knew you, right? The blessing, the gift is not even the service to God, but it's the presence of God that matters.
Michelle, for a family who is looking at this choice of letting God direct lives and with a whole lot of freedom, or the pressure the world is placing, give them a little note of cheer and encouragement today.
Well, I think that the thing to remember is that as you're seeking God, he's always with you and he's going to guide you. I think that what happens, I think where the pressure comes from is identity and trust. And so when we rest in our identity in Christ, and we know that we're made in his image, and he's given us wisdom, and all we have to do is ask, that's what it says in James, and then believe that he's given it to us. And then on the other hand, it's cease striving and know that I'm God. So if we keep our eyes focused on him.
Cease striving.
And know that I'm God. And it's very close between striving and achievement.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that holds it together where you know you've gone off of it, off your eyes on Jesus, is when you start to lose your peace. So if as a parent, if you're striving and you're not at peace, that should be a good warning signal.
That's the
There's
test
hope.
and the quiz for our audience today. Thank you all very much. Super helpful conversation. Well, what happens when you fear your child is losing their faith? What do you say? How can you redirect their thoughts and have a different conversation? Our Christian counselor has some advice. And good morning to Columbia and Columbia Presbyterian Church. You're watching Morning Light right here on Lighthouse TV.
Welcome back. As parents, it seems to be much easier to guide and direct our children when they are young. But when they become adults, it can be a balancing act, especially when you fear your adult child is losing the faith. Earlier, I spoke with Christian counselor Ryan Bailey, and he offers some advice. Ryan, as a parent, the transition from children to teens to adults is really a big one. I have now young adults. It's something where you have to move into this next phase. How do you do it?
Man, I'm going through this too right now. Like literally in August, my wife and I became empty nesters. So I'll just share with you just some of the thoughts that have helped me throughout the stages, knowing that your audience might have younger people. But basically, it's super important that we get that God loves our kids way more than we do, that he has a plan for their lives. He's going to make sure that plan happens. He's guiding them. He's using us and others to mature them. And the more we think about that, the more we think of how much God's invested, this will help us to rest and trust. And then the second is through each of those stages, It's figuring out what are the age appropriate responsibilities that they need to have and then empowering them to do it. Literally not micromanaging them once they know how to do it, but literally it's more just giving them power to do it and giving them permission to make mistakes and learn and grow from those mistakes and to see mistakes as great things as opposed to negative things. And usually that helps us to shift.
Sure, and that's really as far as approaching boundaries. You have to really have boundaries.
My goodness, yes. So the unfortunate thing with boundaries is that I think many people give it a negative connotation, but it's actually what helps us to have really healthy relationships. So you're right, we do need to have boundaries.
And that's right, sort of giving them their freedom, letting them go through different things and watching some things not necessarily go in the right direction, but standing by them 100% of the way.
Absolutely, and especially because they are their own independent thinkers with their own ideas, and they might surprise us with what they come up with. And it might be in a style that's uncomfortable to us, but they might surprise us and do it super well, and we could celebrate with them. And once again, if they make a mistake or something goes south, we can connect to them, empathize, we could be with them and encourage them to grow. So no losses.
Yeah, it's really about guiding them and praying for them, even though, say, both of mine are at college. You can't be there with them every step of the way, but you have to pray for them and know that God is taking care of them.
That's exactly right. He's got, their best interests at heart. He's fighting for them. And we have to just trust that they take what we train them to do and that they're using it where they are in college or out post-college or whatever it is that they're doing. No other way around it.
Yeah, so what do you do, though, when you see that your adult children do not share your same faith? That's a tough one.
Oh, that's so painful. I am so fortunate that all three of my kids believe, but if they didn't, I would be so heartbroken for any one of them. So the first thing that really comes to mind is we have to just keep begging God for their salvation and not give up praying for them. We have no idea when God will move, and God loves to push things to the last minute. And so we have to do that. A second is that we can't take it personally or feel like we failed as parents. Unfortunately, doing what I do for a living for 32 years, parents can do everything right and the child still doesn't believe, and they can do everything wrong and the child comes to faith. I mean, it's just crazy how the Holy Spirit works sometimes. And so we have to just trust him, accept our limits, and know that instead we can still continue to love our kids, find common ground with them, understand their perspective, but not let their views or perceptions creep into ours in a way that's destructive and vice versa. We need to be respectful of each other's views and still continue to fight for the relationship.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You pray for them, you have to respect them and know that God is in control and he's going to take care of them. He's going to guide them in the right direction, but be there for your children no matter what.
Yeah, it's not a time to get into heated arguments and debates that divide, because if they're not ready to listen, they don't desire to listen, I'm so sorry, they're not going to hear you at all. And so it's just going to make the rift even bigger. Instead, I usually try to look for ways to find the common ground and to focus there.
Ryan, thank you so much for this very important information.
Always.
And Ryan Bailey has a blog that details a deeper conversation parents can have with their adult children who have lost the faith. Go to firstprinciplegroup.com/blog. And coming up next on Morning Light, Christian singer-songwriter Matt Hammitt has written over 15 chart-topping songs performed by Sanctus Real and other musicians. He also wrote a book, Lead Me, Finding Courage to Fight for Your Marriage, Children, and Faith. I spoke with him one-on-one with Matt, and we are back in 1 minute.
Welcome back. Well, singer-songwriter Matt Hammitt was the lead singer for the Christian band Sanctus Real for 20 years. He received 3 Dove Awards and has been nominated for 2 Grammys.
But did you also know that he is an author?
I just found this out.
Yes. Well, I sat down with him to talk about his book, Lead Me, Finding Courage to Fight for Your Marriage, Children, and Faith. It's an unfiltered view of his life with his wife, Sarah, and their 4 children. So tell me about the book that you wrote.
Yeah, so from 1996 to 2016, I was the lead singer of Sanctus Real. We met as high school students and just had a dream. We're jamming out in our guitar player's basement. God bless his parents for letting us make all that noise. the song "Lead Me" was the first song that was like the catalyst for Sanctus Real's greatest kind of season of success.
I look around and see my wonderful life.
It kind of brought everything that we had hoped for as a band. You know, the #1 song and all the charting and the big tours and all the things you dream of since you were in high school, and so it was an amazing opportunity for us to grow, but at the same time, the heart of that song was gnawing at me.
Lead me with strong hands.
Because it really did take me away from home more than I'd ever been gone. And the whole heart of that song came from a actual conversation that I had with Sarah, where she said those words to me: I need you to lead me. I need you to be more present emotionally and spiritually as the leader of this family. And that was a message that rooted itself deeply, and I do believe that started my journey of becoming a man of action, not just good intentions, in my family as a leader. And obviously that was a process, and it's a process I'm still in. But yeah, that song is such an irony, that it really did the very opposite of what it talked about in my life, but it did come full circle. And I remember being at Winter Jam tour.
I'm working hard.
And I'm in the middle of the arena, and there's just a specific moment I can remember better than any other, where in one evening with probably like 12,000 people singing every word of that song back to me, it just pierced me so deeply.
With strong hands.
Like, am I really living the words to this song? And ultimately, it was that feeling and that call that God, the lyrics to my own song that God used to speak back to me and bring me home. And in my book, Lead Me, part of the reason I love sharing this book with people is because it is very raw. We don't hold back at all, my wife and I, in the book, about the things that we struggled with in our marriage. We think it's important to share our scars so that people know they're not alone, but also share God's redeeming power in our lives so that people also know that there's hope when they're going through the darkest seasons. So.
Matt, thank you so much for spending time with us and telling us about your different projects that you're working on, and good luck with your new single.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Well, Deborah, you have interviewed a lot of well-known people over the course of your career. This one, though, I know you came back from that interview saying he was so real, so open, and raw in the good way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did read his book, and it is a wonderful book. I mean, there were times where I would just break out in laughter. I mean, it was so funny. Like when in high school, or I should say when he was in elementary school, his nickname was the Barf King. So he talks about things like that. He put it in the book. And then he talked about, as he was, going through being a musician to the point where he met Sarah, the woman he would marry. And this was a very interesting quote that he did say in the book. He said, many of us spent years dreaming about finding the right person, but how much time do we spend dreaming about being the right person?
Wow. What a difference. I mean, there's such a contrast when a believer follows God. God uses all the trials to form you into the person that he wants you to be. Right. And your ambitions he uses, but it wasn't the point.
That is absolutely right.
I'm glad you had this conversation.
Yeah, and he certainly did go on to talk about the struggles that he has had with his wife and how they have worked their way through it. And this was another quote that I thought was really interesting. He said, God continued to impress upon me the importance of being intentional, not just floating around and waiting for change.
Read the book. Get the book.
Definitely. I'm giving it to you now.
Thank you very much.
Certainly a good read. Matt Hammitt's book, Lead Me, is available on Amazon, and certainly it is well worth the read. Stay with us. We are back right after the break. Coming up Tomorrow on Morning Light, Digging for Truth's host Henry Smith will tell us about this year's archaeological dig in Israel, and he will detail what they hope to discover while there. And that's a look at what's coming up tomorrow on Morning Light. Now, Jeff, your closing thoughts.
Well, thank you, Deborah. Well, you remember the college admission scandal a few years back, parents bribing officials for slots to Yale and Stanford and Georgetown. Why was it so offensive? The unfairness, arrogance, brashness of the whole scheme? Someone could get something they didn't earn? Look, the scandal revealed something a whole lot bigger, like luxury cars in certain zip codes. Too many of us view a degree from a great school like a golden ticket, a way to guarantee a lifetime supply of good things. Some of us will be sacrificing everything to get it. Fred Rogers, that's Mr. Rogers, reminded us of this in a commencement address. It's not the honors and the prizes and the fancy outsides of life which ultimately nourish our souls. It's knowing that we can be trusted, that we never have to fear the truth, that the bedrock of our very being is good stuff. For Fred, that bedrock was his faith in God, and faith is the biggest prize of all. For Deborah and the entire Morning Light team, I'm Jeff Coleman. Thanks for watching today. Check on your neighbors, and we'll look for you back here tomorrow morning.